Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the January 15th regular meeting of Council. The City of Parksville recognizes the people of the Coast Salish Nations and their traditional territory, upon which we gather with gratitude. The first item we have on the agenda tonight is the adoption of the minutes of the Council meeting held December 18th, 2017. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Beale, seconded by Councillor Burden. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Yes, Councillor Oates.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to move reconsideration of motion 17-367.
You have a seconder for that. Councillor Burden seconds the motion.
And the reason I'd like to have it reconsidered is that I feel that I haven't done my due diligence on this particular item. I didn't think I did enough homework on it coming in the last time. And there's been various concerns that have been raised that have caused me to do more research and identify more concerns. And so I'd like to have the opportunity to have those questions addressed and those concerns addressed before we replace what we have with something that I'm not sure about what it looks like in the future.
Okay, any comments from any other members of council? Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Proceed. Oh, I now need an approval of the remaining part of the... No, I can't do that. We've got to go into reconsideration right now? Okay, let's do that.
Okay, thank you, Worship, and thank you, Council, for supporting this reconsideration motion. The report that was given to Council the last time, it had a reference in there about the removal of trees or the necessity of trees there. And it's like a little 3-line paragraph there. And I looked everywhere that I could in my agenda, my previous meeting's agenda package, and I looked online, and I wasn't able to find the Appendix 1 where I'm assuming all those details are addressed. So if I'm unclear about where the specifications or the standards are with respect to trees are, I'm probably pretty unclear about everything else that's in there as well. And I think that before I'm voting to replace something with something that I don't know what it is, I think we as a council should look at what that entails and not repeal and replace the bylaw until we know what it's being replaced with. And this should have been brought up at the last meeting, but I missed it, and so.
Well, you're not the only. I hadn't read the attachment before the last meeting either, because it was a long 300-page document. I've had a look at it since. Any other comments from any other members of council? Councillor Salter.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yes, I actually did mention at the last meeting that I hadn't had the opportunity to go through this the way I needed to in order to have done my due diligence. And then the other piece of it is that that's correct, that there are a lot of references in here that I could not cross-reference. And then the other piece is there's many things that I have questions about that had not been answered. It would make sense to me that we go through this as a council very slowly and methodically, so that we all understand what it is that we're either agreeing to or not agreeing to. Because at this point, I don't think we do.
Does council want to have a separate meeting on this particular item along with staff in an open meeting? We want to do that. Can somebody make a motion to that effect? Then we, Councillor Beale. Okay, so we've dealt with that. We've called the vote. Everybody supports the reconsideration. Yes.
Yeah, no, the reconsideration is passed, Your Worship. But with respect to the motion, you could refer it to a special meeting of council to discuss the report.
Okay, so that's the motion. I have a mover and I have a second. You're the mover and you're the seconder. Okay, further discussion on that? Okay, all those in favor? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried unanimously. Now, I'm going to call, with that exception of what we've just passed, I'm going to call for an approval of tonight's agenda, the January 15th council meeting agenda be approved. Need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Beale. Are there any errors or omissions? All those in favor? Thank you. That is approved. Members of council, we have 3 delegations tonight. The first delegation is the Mid-Island Chapter Wilderness Committee, the appreciation for purchase of land, and we got a freebie tonight, don't we? We're going to get some calendars. Mrs. Ronda Murdock. Politicians love free stuff. I don't know how often I've said that, but we love free stuff. So come on down. Do you need the projector, Rhonda? No? Okay. So welcome, and turn the button on and go right ahead. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Lefebvre, councillors, and staff. Thank you for the opportunity to appear tonight. So I'm speaking on behalf of the Mid-Island chapter of the Wilderness Committee, and I'm here to congratulate you and to thank you for acquiring the Parksville wetlands. They have a real economic benefit. Environmental economists have estimated goods and services to be more than $20,000 per hectare per year from wetlands. Wetlands are one of the most important life-supporting systems on Earth. They absorb and filter sediments and pollutants, recharge groundwater, maintain stream flows, control runoff and store floodwaters, support birds, amphibians, and wildlife. Wetlands are amazing at absorbing water quickly and releasing it slowly. And the end result is improved water quality for us coming out of our taps. So it was a tremendous coup to have purchased those wetlands. Christopher Stevens, as many of you know, championed the protection of these wetlands. And Christopher has created a site plan for the wetlands. And he did that as part of his parks planning course in the Masters of Community Planning program at VIU, at which he recently graduated. There are many elements to this plan. They include trail expansion, a unique environmentally sensitive boardwalk, interpretive signage, vegetation restoration using native plantings, parking areas and visitor center, and I urge the city to take their time doing this. We don't have to spend a lot of money. In fact, we would like it left as natural as possible. And I'd like to say that no one knows these wetlands better than Christopher Stevens. So he knows the places that are dry sometimes and then wet other times. So it would be a good thing to have Christopher, because you can't have somebody in there creating trails that doesn't know that place inside out and backwards like Christopher does. So yeah, I want to thank you for recognizing the importance of acquiring the Parksville wetlands as the very important asset that they are as a natural park, supporting the birds and amphibians, as well as protecting the recharge function of our groundwater wells that are adjacent. So thank you, and again, congratulations. And yes, I've got wilderness counters for you.
Thanks very much. Any questions from Mrs. Murdock? By anybody, any members of council? Councillor Salter?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would just like to say thank you very much for that presentation. And I would also like to say I agree with you. Christopher Stevens did grow up in those wetlands, and I think that having done that and been over there so long, I think that really impacted him and helped direct his career path going forward. Yeah. Right? And yeah, if anyone knows the wetlands, it's Christopher. Yeah.
I think also your comment that, keep it as natural as possible is something that we're going to be wanting to do. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thanks, Rhonda, so much. I really enjoy when you come before council, not just because of we sometimes get calendars that I really appreciate, but I'm going to ask kind of a personal type question because you have a fabulous business that tends to see different areas and that in our community. Would you foresee that this could be something that people would want to venture out and see bird and water fowl and things in the park?
Oh yeah. Yeah, well, Christopher actually is our bird guide, and you know, you need to be an expert because we have people coming around the world
Yes.
to see birds here. We actually had Australia's top birder come to go birding with Christopher because he was doing a big year, and so yes, but. Yeah, I think it's, you know, it has to be done so very carefully. Yes, people, birding, you can Google that. Birding is huge and growing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And Councillor Salter, you want to add a comment? Or?
I do want to add a comment on the birding. Actually, I was in a meeting, our branch meeting, and we actually discussed that there's just a handful of places where the birds migrate, and Parksville is actually one of them. Like we are on the map for a migration for the birds. I don't know which ones, but a lot of them. I know that someone here would know that. Yeah, and Christopher, but yeah, so we are a really important community with regard to birds and rare species.
That is not to say we're not for the birds, but we're really important. Yeah, don't talk to me like that. They're back. All right, the next delegation is the Oceanside Track and Field, a request for track upgrade. Jane Waite. Is Jane Waite here tonight? Hi, Jane. Come on up and speak to the microphone. And Jane, who are you with? Oh, okay. Welcome. Okay, turn on the microphone and tell us all about the Oceanside request for a track update.
All right. So this is my first time doing this. So my name is Jane, and I'm the junior development coach with Oceanside Track and Field, and I'm also involved on the board with the soccer as well. So I'm aware of some of the needs there, and have 5 kids in the school system. 3 of them are at Ballenas, and 1 is at Oceanside, and 1 is just graduating at UVic now. So that's where I'm coming from. So I would like to bring to your attention the need. Our track is in disrepair and needs some serious upgrades, and I just want to bring that to your attention. So we have a little PowerPoint thing here. Okay, so just a little history of the track. It was built in the 70s, and there's been a few upgrades to it. It was built basically when the school was built. There was a curb upgrade in 2009, cost of $1,200 and $1,800, partially paid by Oceanside Track and an RDN grant. And there has been 3 times that the track's been turned over. It's a process called a rotadarian, where they try to recycle the cinders. And it costs about $5,000 each time, and that's been done 3 times in the last 13 years. And there was some new cinder added in 2009, but that didn't go so well. I think a lot of it blew away. And then we added a long jump and a high jump in 2008 through Oceanside Track and an RDN grant. So in almost, 45 years, that's what's been done to the track. So we have a few pictures. Oh, it doesn't look very, this isn't these aren't very good. I took them on my phone. I was down in Port Alberni yesterday with my daughter. She had a hockey game, so I walked over to the track and took some pictures. But it just shows you that at 9 in the morning, the track was being used by locals just walking on the track. So that's really what I wanted to show you in that picture. And it's really foggy. So these pictures are taken in our neighboring communities, and they have similar populations. So we have, in the 2016 census, Parksville, Oceanside, which was Arrington, Ballenas, Bowser, Nanoose, was 45,000, and Comox Valley has a population of 43,000, and Cowichan Valley has a population of 28,000, and Port Alberni has a population of 19,000, and they all have tracks. I think that our community can handle a track. So this is a training track in Victoria, and notice there is a slanted sprint track there, which is it's a 3-lane track just for practicing sprinting, and then the main track is a 4-lane track, and inside is a soccer field, which you could combine user groups. And then here is one of our athletes doing hurdles within the lanes, and this is the track at Duncan. It's really quite dangerous doing hurdles on a cinder track that's not an even surface. They are at risk for turning an ankle. So that's the Duncan track there, and here is Joanna doing her sprint starts. It's an incomparable surface starting on a cinder track as opposed to a rubberized track. So it's really important for their sprint starts to practice that. And here's the Port Alberni track, and there you see that's 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. People are just out using the track. And here's our track. So this is looking from Ballenas upwards along the residential fence. It's hard to see the curb at all. It's covered in weeds and is becoming part of the field and is uneven, okay? And then the last one, this is our long jump run up. So we put the mat just at the edge of the track. So our senior runners have to run, there isn't a long enough run up for them. They have to start on the grass and then run onto the pavement, and it's often covered in water, so the drainage is poor, and we can't jump when it rains because of the pooling. And the dirt on this side, that's where they start. So that shows you the condition of the track. So from our athletes' perspective, they're at a disadvantage because they don't have a comparable surface for training. There's no lines to run between, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but it's actually hard to run between the lines when you're running really fast. And they have to look down to avoid tripping. It's unsafe landing when they're hurdling. They're pooling water and weeds throughout the track. It's more like cross-country running, really, and it's not sufficient for high jump run-up, and there is an uneven surface for their sprint practice. So some of the benefits of a track would not just be for the track athletes, but also for the community and other user groups like Special Olympics, Oceanside Track, Ballenas, and KSS Track and Field, all the elementary schools in the community, and other clubs like Mid-Island Distance Running Club, which are run by Kim and Randy Longmuir, and the Orca Running Club. Also, Masters athletes would use the track. Masters, there is a group that run down in Nanaimo. They have to leave the community. They choose to train down in Nanaimo than here. Other sports teams, it's an excellent facility for cross-training for any other sports, like football, baseball, any explosive sport, soccer, rugby, lacrosse, basketball, even racket sports would use it. And also wheelchair athletes and community walkers, age 1 to 100, or more, I suppose, if you could make it that far. So with a complete facility, you also have the potential for running meets and raising funds. And I think Parksville is in a unique position in the middle of the island to support such a thing, especially with all the tourism that we have here. And I've talked to other parents that like to come here to go to tournaments because it's in the middle of the island and because of the beaches, and they bring their siblings with them. So we have a unique opportunity. It's also the health benefits speak for themselves. It's an even slip-free surface with a measurable surface at measurable distance that people like to count their laps. It's Fitbit friendly, which is the thing to do now, so you can count your laps. And when I was down in Port Alberni, I chatted with a gentleman who was walking around the track, and he said he comes there every morning. He does 11 laps, and it takes him 45 minutes, and he was 70 years old. So a rubberized track. I am also a physio, and I would love to have a track to send my patients to go and do their things. So it's really good for weight-bearing joints. It's a rubberized. There's a lot more less compression, and people don't like to walk in poor conditions. They're afraid of slipping with any hip injuries, and as you get older. So having a rubberized track would decrease the impact on joints and bones in weight-bearing joints, and helpful to provide, just any weight-bearing joints. So it encourages activity with the young and the old. Oh, and then the other thing is I don't know if any of you have been involved with or aware of the district elementary school track meet. It's a wonderful way to bring the community together with all the elementary schools. And in my mind, that's the most important thing, to start kids young, running, jumping, and throwing, and in the spirit of community. It's the only time that all the elementary schools come together to compete, in rain and whatever conditions. On that Thursday in June, once a year, it's mayhem, but it's part of the community. So, and it also would encourage aspiring athletes to stay in our community. Some of our higher level athletes usually leave to train in other communities because the facilities aren't here to support them. And I don't know if any of you know of Mike Mason, but he started here. He made it in high jump and was 8th in the London Olympics, and he left for he trained in Abbotsford, I believe. And Alicia Butterworth is a local athlete here who's just made standard for steeplechase. And so, there are athletes here that have potential, and it would be nice to be able to support them. And so I hope that I've brought to your attention the need for a new track and the benefit of a track in our community. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks very much. Don't go away. I've got a lot of questions, but I'm going to go to council first. Members of council, do you have any questions? Councillor Beale, Councillor Burden, Councillor Salter, Councillor Burden, Councillor Patterson, Councillor Powell. Who's first? Councillor Beale.
Thank you, and thank you very much for the presentation. And I do know that track reasonably well as well, and having been there for many elementary gatherings. I'm just wondering, and I'm sure that our Councillor Patterson will be able to speak more to this as she's with the Recreation Commission, but have you met with RDN? Who looks after? I just have a number of questions, such as who looks after the maintenance? What is there now? What sort of response has there been from the school district? Has the RDN given any indications? There was just recently one of the open houses to look at the recreation master plan, and I know that the soccer field, was brought up, but it didn't seem to get the high-level responses for an overall plan. But I'm just wondering, where are things at? And finally, with the Tourism Association, I know that they have someone there who focuses on sports tourism, and I wonder if they've been able to offer any encouragement as well. So pick a question and give me an answer.
Well, no,
that'd be great.
I mean, we participated in the master plan, and I was honestly disappointed that it was so low down on it, of course, but there are others with interest as well. And I know this thing takes a long time. We did apply for a grant, RDN grant, and got one to replace the storage shed, which we keep all our the jumping mat, and that's going to replace, and it's full of holes, so we're going to replace that. We decided that was important to maintain the equipment because it was getting damaged. So, but there's that's all that's happening this year. I know that Kim and Randy Longmere put a big effort into it years ago, and the ball was rolling, and it was going to happen, and then it didn't. So I don't know. So really, I'm just starting this process again. I think I guess you just have to keep at it. But I'm happy to have any input on where else we should turn.
Before I move on, how much money are we talking about?
To build a track?
Yeah.
Well, that's a good question. I don't really know what it would cost, but I imagine it would be a big ticket item.
Anybody in the audience working with this group? I recognize some people. How much money are we talking about? Any idea? So, basic cost $1.5 million? Basic cost $1.5 million, but Thank you. Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have been to the Port Alberni track, actually, and it is a really good track. It's nice. I have a couple questions. First of all, if I remember right, Councillor Greer discussed a track prior to his leaving council, and I do recall he had some numbers, and he had a group who were involved with that. I just don't remember the actual numbers, but maybe I'll connect with him. Well, thank you for your presentation. I forgot to say that. But are you here to request some financing, or have you got to that point yet?
No, we haven't really. I'm just really trying to raise awareness.
Just raise awareness, yeah.
Just trying to lobby for a track. At some point, it really is in desperate need, and it's quite, it's quite embarrassing, actually, the track.
I would like to make a suggestion, and one is I would want to find out what that track cost in Port Alberni. Like, what was the cost of that track? Maybe ask Nanaimo what it cost them, so you have a better idea of what it is you're looking at as far as cost. And then, as well as if the city and the regional district and so on, it might be valuable to speak to businesses, like franchises and so on, who would be interested in helping as well for maybe some advertisement and so on, you know what I'm saying? So that might be helpful as well.
I think the big thing is finding a place to put it. The location is the big thing, and if we had a place to start from, then we could really roll with it. But I don't know where that would be. I know I spoke to Dean Banner, and he had sort of talked during the master plan meetings, and he had indicated that there were some properties out there, but he couldn't say for sure.
Okay, so you're not requesting a track at the Ballenas Field?
Well, I actually think I think we should have one at Ballenas Field, because that's where our community is focused. But in the future, way down the road, I think it would behoove us to have a larger multi-complex. But I think that the community could support 2 tracks in the long future. But right now, Ballenas track is really where the focus should be.
So you're focusing on Ballenas track.
Yep.
So something on Ballenas, so you want it there.
Yep.
So, okay, and so then in that case, you're looking at 250 to 350.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. So the Ballenas track is obviously on school district property, and have you talked to them at all?
Well, and I know it's on school district, and school district never has any money, and that's why nothing's ever happened. But no, I haven't, and I'm aware of the issues of it being on school property, though.
Okay. I've watched this saga for a number of years, not from this position, but as a member of the public. I think that, and you can correct me, and maybe staff can correct me if I'm wrong, that the stumbling block is probably the ownership of the land and finding a way to enhance the partnership that we have with the school district with regard to placing a city or a regional district facility on school district land.
Could the city purchase the track from the school?
I'm thinking no, but I'll look to the expert, and I'm hearing no.
No.
So,
because Springwood is well maintained and is run by the city.
Springwood is well maintained and run by the city, but the land is also owned by the city. I have recently been appointed to the Regional District Parks and Rec Commission and was a participant at the end of the process with regard to the facilities master plan. And I get that the track was slightly further down the list than maybe a lot of people would hope, but I will do what I can to include increase the awareness that you presented here tonight at that level.
Awesome. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you for your presentation. Although the track was down on the list of activities on that, walking and outside outdoor activities was the highest. So I think that kind of fits together very much with the track and being able to be in the community and having people be accessible to it, especially with some of our different groups of accessibility challenged individuals in the community. And so I'm really glad that you're here. I do really hope that you continue very soon, like you have a plan in mind to go before the Parks and Rec Commission, before the school board, before the Parksville Qualicum Beach Tourism Association, because there's power in numbers and there's power in working together. I would love to see better facilities, both either at Ballenas or down the road, a proper facility. It's been on the agenda for as long as I've been on council. And I'm so glad that you still have kids in the middle school, because that means that you're going to still be around with us to see this, to hopefully see this to fruition.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you very much for your presentation. I remember in the park in 2010 when we had the Olympics, and we were talking about a track then, and that we didn't have a track. And so here we are 7 years later, and we still don't have a track. And so there's a couple questions I have for you. People have brought up the school district. The existing track, the school district's responsible for the maintenance of that?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And so what you're looking for tonight is basically $250,000 to $300,000 to upgrade that track.
Yes.
And it will be on the school district. Now, I'm not sure about the politics. Councillor Burton talked about it a bit, and maybe you can clarify. Would it be possible for the city to put up, if we had it in the budget, and you'd have to come with a proposal, would it be possible to work with the school district? Is that going to be a barrier?
I don't believe there's any barriers anywhere, but other people sometimes do. Is it possible to work with the school district? Well, we worked with the school district to build this building. So
I don't mean
it
in
is
that
possible.
sense. No.
Is there the likelihood right now? I wouldn't know until we start asking the questions and have a sit down with the school district.
No, I'm sorry, you misunderstood.
Okay.
What I'm trying to say is, if the city came forward, if you came forward with a proposal for our next budgeting process, which is next year, to request some funding, and we had an opportunity to put it in the budget or not, and then we would approach, would we be stepping on the school district's toes if we did that, or would we work in partnership with them? Like, I'm not saying, you know what I'm saying? So, I would like to see this happen. I think it's a really important project, and I think we need to put our money where our mouth is. And so I would be open to having a presentation from you at the next budget meeting with a proposal We had the pickleball here in our budgeting process. We've had the soccer people here for the budgeting process. We've actually had 2 pickleball groups here. And so I think that they should, like, that's an opportunity to move it forward. We need something concrete, and the cost would be concrete. I think that it might be on you to talk to the school district, to talk about the plan that you have, and then come back to us. And I know that's extra work, but we got to get it moving, and that's the only way that I know how to do that. Okay. So if I'm still here, you got my support.
Excellent.
I want to sort of look at this, sort of do a bit of a wrap-up. This is an awareness campaign that you're starting tonight. Is this the first council you've come to? Because this is Oceanside now. We're talking about Nanoose, we're talking about Qualicum Beach, we're talking about Harrington, Coombs, and Whiskey Creek. Everybody uses these facilities, all these students, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you haven't been to anybody else but Parksville as of now in terms of this awareness?
No.
I would
at this time, we've been through this before. Kim and Randy Longmire went through this process several years ago, but we're starting it again. So this is the beginning of a new.
What I'm going to strongly recommend you do is, first of all, you go to the RDN board. Councillor Oates and myself sit on that board. I would make a presentation like you've made this evening. I would, if I could respectfully suggest you give some statistics in terms of students and where they're from and how many students are involved in the program.
Yes.
And how many other groups are involved and where they're from. I would ask you to take up Councillor Burden's offer. He sits on the District Recreation Committee, and you should go to that group and make a presentation to them. I would also strongly advise, based on what Councillor Powell has told you, to go to the school board and have a long talk to them to see what if any monies they might have if we're going to work together on this, because we can't do that alone. I mean, we can't. The city could not supply all of the funding for this. It would be fiscally impossible. So you've got that work to do. Frankly, if I were taking up track and field tomorrow, I'd go somewhere else. I mean, you've convinced me that we're in terrible shape. Those pictures say 1,000 words, so there's something that's got to be done. It can't stay the way it is. So I would ask you to start doing that and keep us in touch. Let me know what you're doing and how things are going with these other groups. Councillor Powell talked about budget meetings. Well, the next budget meeting is going to start when for the future budgets next March. So anyway, there's no doubt about it. Something has to be done. Things are in terrible condition. I won't be taking up track and field anytime soon, from what I've seen tonight, and I'm sure a lot of other people wouldn't be. It's awful. So yeah, let's get the ball rolling. I think that what you've got here tonight is a lot of support by people that want to increase the awareness and look at the dollars and see what everybody else is going to participate in too, in terms of spending their money. So, and I might point out that if the RDN makes a contribution, that automatically means that Parksville and Qualicum Beach also make contributions. So we'll have to cross that bridge when we come. As part of the RDN contribution, we all contribute to that. So you should know that that's a complicated issue. And if we give money aside from that, well, we'd have to look at that when the time comes. Any other further comments or questions for the delegation? Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just really want to reiterate, if you do present to any other group, if it's a school district or the regional district or whoever, you should really have a really solid proposal, so you know where exactly you want to have this field, what exactly material you're going to be using on that field, and what that's going to cost. What will the maintenance cost be? Because those are questions that are going to come up, because that's what that's what's on all of our minds right now, is what's this going to cost us. That's really what's on our mind. How do we pay for this? And will there be a tax increase, or can or not, or whatever? At this point, we really don't know how much you're asking for, because we don't really know what it's going to look like. But so that's something you want to have really solid when you make all your presentations, is you have this really solid proposal. You can even hand it out, and then a lot of that information is right in front of them when they're making that decision. because it would be difficult to make such a decision even tonight, because we don't really know how much or what it's going to look like. So that's just one piece.
That's a very good point. You know, you have to identify what are the minimum dollars you're looking for. What would be the minimum that you would accept, and after that, well.
Yep.
So let's hear from you. Come back again. Come to the RDN and get involved with the District Recreation Commission too.
Great.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And I think that the feeling by this council tonight is that we're all in this. We want to help as much as we can, but let's get everybody involved. This is not a City of Parksville alone, standalone issue. It involves a lot of other people.
Right. Thank you very much.
Okay, the next delegation we have this evening is Ballenas Secondary School, and it's the satellite building project. And I spoke with Willow and Rebecca earlier this evening just for a few seconds, and it sounds like a very exciting project. So if you want to come to the microphone and tell us all about this satellite building project.
First and foremost, I'd like to extend our group's collective gratitude towards having us here today to speak about our project and the possibility of contributing funds towards our cause. My name is Willow, and it is my honor to present to you a number of the outstanding members of the Ballenas Cube satellite team, all of which are collaborating with the University of British Columbia's rocket team to produce a cube satellite that will be launched on a UBC-built rocket. It will reach an altitude of 10,000 feet. In fact, we are one of the select few high schools in British Columbia that have been given the opportunity to contribute to this phenomenal project.
Hello everyone, my name is Rebecca and I am the team lead of this project. My role is to coordinate all 20 members to successfully build and test our satellite. We are a group of highly dedicated students from Ballenas Secondary School and have all taken a keen interest in this incredible project. Some of our members are here supporting us today, including our physics teacher, Mr. Savage, who has been an important mentor for us in this valuable learning experience. Yeah, of course. It's imperative to realize the extent of this project. It's not every day high school students receive an opportunity like this, and we are very proud to be able to represent not only our school, but our community in this mission. Especially when we travel to New Mexico to attend the Spaceport America Cup to witness our hard work being launched 10,000 feet into the sky. UBC is one of the top universities in all of Canada, and it is a huge honor for us to be able to give the opportunity to build a satellite for them.
For a little bit of background information, a cube satellite is a 10 by 10 centimeter cubic structure that both performs experiments and collects data on a vast array of scales. During the launch, the rocket will encounter extreme conditions that are not typically felt near the Earth's surface, especially during the launch itself. With that in mind, we decided our experiment would be to test the effects of this extreme environment on a mini computer called a Raspberry Pi.
I can't even begin to explain the tremendous learning opportunities that have arisen from this experience. Not only a wealth of scientific knowledge, but more importantly, we've learned so many essential soft skills that are necessary in today's world. This includes working collaboratively, developing strong communication skills, and the ability to solve complex problems. There are future engineers and scientists among this group, and it's exciting to think that we are so young and we are already taking an initiative to go above and beyond in our own learning. I believe that school shouldn't be a place where we are forced to learn, but inspired to learn. And for everyone on this team, there is some aspect of this project that fills their curiosity and interest. Projects like these are what engage students and encourage them to learn, and chances are when students enjoy what they're learning, they're going to excel. I'm sure most of you have driven past our school without a second thought, but there are some amazing things happening beyond those doors, and many incredible students striving to receive the most of their education. This is where you step in. For this project to be a complete success, we need the support of our community.
We believe the support of our City Council and community would greatly enhance our ability to continue this life-changing project with the passion and vigor that drew us to the project in the first place. We approach you today in hopes that the City Council and community will kindly contribute to 1/4 of the costs for this educational journey. Currently, $300 of our $28,000 goal has been fundraised through our GoFundMe page. Not only will these funds go towards many important materials required to build our CUBE satellite, it will also help pay for students to fly down to New Mexico in June and watch our very own satellite be launched at the Spaceport America Cup. The majority of funds raised will be allocated towards this once-in-a-lifetime trip, covering costs for flights, accommodation, and ground travel. In New Mexico, we will be able to view the works of top universities, including MIT, Caltech, Stanford, and universities we are interested in attending in our near future. We will also be able to connect with over 20 aerospace organizations such as SpaceX. Your financial aid will showcase your dedication to supporting the young minds of tomorrow and the amazing projects that are happening in your community. Thank you all again for providing us with the opportunity to share our passion and drive for this project with you. We are a group of growing scientists, and building a functional satellite from scratch has allowed us all to prosper in our own unique ways. We would also like to recognize Mr. Savage, our phenomenal physics and science research methods teacher, for his dedication towards his students and the numerous enrichment opportunities he has made possible for us. Mr. Savage's enjoyment of science not only reflects in his students, but it also motivates us to aspire for opportunities that fulfill our passions. We are very proud to be able to represent both Ballenas Secondary School and the Parksville community in this project. Not only will your financial support be an investment into the local youth, but it will also be an investment into the prestige of the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. Could I get a hard copy of your presentation tonight? Could you get me a copy of that? Is that it? May I have a copy? Thank you. Sure, thank you. No, when I get in shape with the track and field, I'll be able to jump over the desk, but right now the track and field is in such lousy condition, I can't do that. Thank you very much. That, you know, it kind of makes me wish I was back in high school again. It's a great project. And when I see the University of British Columbia Rocket Club, that's quite a club. Okay, questions for the delegation? Councillor Powell, Councillor Salter, Councillor Patterson, and then Councillor Beal.
Thank you very, very much for your presentation. I can't wait. The other thing is when is it going to happen?
Well, the actual launch is in June.
In June?
Yes, in New Mexico.
Okay. And so I don't know if you're aware, but we do have a policy that we passed earlier this year for people that apply for grants. And so I'm wondering, are you familiar with that policy?
No.
You haven't seen it because there's certain criteria that has to be met in order to apply for a grant. And it might be worthwhile for you to have a conversation with city staff and ask them for a copy of the policy so that you could provide us with that. And like I understand the $28,000, but what we need is to see where the money is needed, how much you've raised. There's a whole bunch of stuff we need. And so if you could maybe talk to them, and that would give us further notice. And I would support it, but I need that piece.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for your presentation. That was really interesting. I'd like to come to Mexico too, so if you get a little extra more for me, I'll come. I would also support this. Yeah, part of it is, knowing your financials and so on. I'm expecting that won't be too difficult for you to put together. And then once you do that, if you present that to council, we can look at support, you know, whether or not we would be able to support this. But certainly I would be more than willing to support this. I think it's a fantastic project, and great that so many young people are interested. And you're right. You are the next generation of engineers and astronauts.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Worship. And like the other councillors around the table, you inspire. And just warms my heart because we've had the track and field, we've had soccer, we've had sciences, and we have so many amazing students and youth in our area. So it's very motivating. But at this time, I'll see if any other councillors would like some questions, but I'd like to make a motion that staff work with this group.
Let's wait on that. Any other members of council? Councillor Beal, I'm sorry. You had your hand.
That's all right. Thank you. And I'd like to add my thanks for the presentation. And it just it sounds like a fantastic opportunity. And you know, at some level, I'm kind of curious to know a little bit more of the background, but I'll leave that here. You know, how you ended up doing this and being selected. I mean, that's fantastic. One of the things Councillor Powell explained about, you know, needing a little more information, so I'm glad that the launch is not next month. So June gives a little bit of time to get that in. I'm curious, you mentioned the prestige, so presumably there might be an opportunity for Parksville's logo, if not to go into space, to at least get some sort of recognition when we're able to make a donation to the cause. And are all 20 members of the club, is the plan that everyone is able to go?
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like all of the members will be able to go, considering it's going to be really close to exam season, and also getting tickets to actually go into the competition. It looks like, from what UBC Rocket Team has explained, that there's going to be limited tickets available. So once we get more information on that, we'll be able to figure out exactly how many people will be able to go, but we would really love to take as many students as we can.
That makes me think a little bit of, you know, when you summit a mountain, be it Everest or K2, you know, there's this whole team that gets to base and a little further along, but it's only a smaller group that gets to go to the top. But nonetheless, what a great effort on everyone's part. So congratulations on having this opportunity.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Councillor Oates?
Thank you, Worship. Yes, I echo congratulations on being given this opportunity, and really it's us and the people of Parksville that are the winners, because we get to see how bright the future is, and it looks like the future is quite bright, and so I commend you for that. I do have a question. You said that you're asking for the City of Parksville to support 1/4 of the amount that's required. Where is the other 3/4 coming from?
Through outreach, we're currently going to businesses and asking for sponsorship. We currently have one business, Tinamera, who has been willing to sponsor us, and through our GoFundMe page and our Facebook page, we're hoping for more public support through those means.
So the ask tonight for the City of Parksville Council is $7,000.
Yes.
Thank you, and congratulations once again, and to the team as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I understand there are 20 students involved,
Yes.
roughly?
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody's going to New Mexico.
No.
Councillor Salter can't go because she's busy that day. I know. But no, how many, pardon me? I'm trained. How many people are going to New Mexico?
That's still yet to be determined, whether or not how many tickets we get. We're hoping we've divided our team into separate teams for each aspect of the project, and so we have a lead for each of those teams. So we're hoping that at least all the leads will be able to go, and depending on how many tickets we get for the actual competition, we'll hopefully be able to bring more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is you're building. This is all great information. You're building a 10 by 10 cubic meter structure that performs experiments and collects data on a vast array of scales. During the launch, the rocket will encounter, you repeated this, but I'm repeating it again, encountering extreme conditions that are not typically felt near the Earth's surface, especially during the launch. So that's awesome. That's congratulations.
Yeah, we didn't want to get too technical, but
Thank you.
I was Councillor Oates, you're not going to New Mexico.
Have you approached Qualicum Beaches Council with a similar request?
no, we haven't yet. We wanted to focus on our close community, and then from there we wanted to branch out and seek other opportunities.
Match whatever they put up.
Have you, the students that are going, they don't all live in Parksville? They live in other areas of the Oceanside?
Well, for most of our students, they live in the Parksville area and in Anus, but personally, I live in, I'm technically supposed to go to Qualicum Secondary School, but I decided to go to Ballenas, so it really just depends on where you live.
Okay. Okay, let's, no, I told you you're not going to New Mexico. What do you, Councillor Salter?
Just one question. So this GoFundMe, is that a page? Is there an address for the GoFundMe?
Yeah, we
give us
have
the address?
we have a Facebook page up, and there's a link to that GoFundMe page on there.
So
Yeah.
there isn't an address to just go to the GoFundMe?
Well, if you just search up GoFundMe and just search up Ballenas Satellite Team, you'll be able to easily find it that way.
Yeah, because actually you could explain that, and it could maybe get in the paper, and then maybe more people
Yeah,
would know how
actually,
to.
we just got into the paper for that as well.
Are you, I had a question here that I can't read my own writing. Are you sure you're going to get the $28,000?
Well, we'll accept more if you want to give us more. There's no problem there.
I asked that the wrong way. Mrs. Comas, a loaded question. Mr. Butterworth's not here tonight. We're going to have a surplus for 2017? Are we going to have a surplus?
We will likely have a surplus, Your Worship. How much, I don't know.
Staff is always very, 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 very careful about talking about surplus. Councillor Patterson, you wanted to make a motion.
I'm second guessing on that because I'll just talk for a moment, please. So my first thought was to have this group work with staff to work for the application and everything, to come before council for their official ask. But realistically, this is our first meeting of 2018, and we have a new council contingency fund, and I would like personally for all of council to support and give this group $7,000 their quarter ask today.
I have a seconder for that. Seconded by Councillor Powell.
We have that on contingent on following the policy?
Absolutely.
Okay, for sure.
So that means, Councillor.
So what I understand that to mean that upon this group supplying the documentation that Councillor Powell referenced earlier, the check will be written.
So you, Mrs. Comas, would somebody from staff liaise with this group? I'm sure they'd pick it up pretty quickly. Any further comments or discussions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. And I'm in favor because I know we're going to have a surplus from 2007.
Yeah, we definitely will. Yeah, so right now we have a Facebook page, and we're going to start posting our progress on the team. By the end of the month, we plan to have a prototype build, so we'll have that all so you guys will be able to see our progress and come along with our journey.
Could you put something on the Cube satellite that says City of Parksville?
Yes, we most definitely will.
Well,
yeah, we would love to.
Sure.
Thanks very much, and congratulations, and
Your
Mr.
Worship,
Savage,
could I ask-
congratulations for all the work that you do. Yes.
Sorry, could I ask
Councillor Patterson.
one other quick question? This launch is June 28th. Is that the specific
The
date, or-
competition, the competition is end of June, around the 23rd to 25th, I believe.
Okay, so it probably may or may not affect exam schedule, but it may affect, I'm not sure if graduation ceremonies and that have been already determined or not.
I don't think there's any overlap between the two.
Awesome.
Maybe we could watch the launch.
Yes, we definitely will.
Is the launch going to be filmed?
I'm not entirely sure. Yeah, there you go.
Let us know when the launch is, if it's going to be filmed, and we'll all watch it.
Okay, sounds good.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, good.
Yeah, there we go.
Good stuff. Okay. But I want to see it at the time of the launch. I don't want to wait. Okay. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Okay, Council, we have one piece of correspondence tonight, and that's from the Parksville District Historical Society, that their letter to Council be received. the letter dated December 14, 2017. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Beale. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Okay, we have reports this evening. Consideration of proceeding with a notice for a development variance permit to facilitate repurposing of existing single-family dwelling at an accessory carriage house at 443 Pioneer Crescent. Are you going to recluse yourself?
I'm going to recuse
you
myself.
May. You should. I know where you live. Okay, well, on that note, Mr. Russell, as Councillor Beale leaves the room, would you please give us the background on this? Oh, first of all, I need a mover and a seconder for the two recommendations. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Patterson. Mr. Russell, if you would, please.
For Mayor Worship, so for Council this evening is to consider to proceed with notice to allow for subsequent consideration of a variance upon public input on an application to vary the minimum building size for accessory buildings and carriage houses from 90 square meters to 157.3 square meters in order to allow for the existing dwelling to be repurposed as a carriage house while a new dwelling is built on the property.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Russell? Councillor Burton.
I'm prepared to support moving it forward to notice, but this is a 1/3 increase over what's allowed. What sort of precedents are we setting by doing this?
If a Mayor Worship through to Councillor Burton, no legal precedent is being set. However, it may potentially invite more applications in the future should others also look to amend, try to repurpose existing dwellings.
Any further questions for Mr. Russell? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Would somebody please get Councillor Beale back in the room? Ask on the PA system. Check the bathroom. Check the washroom. You know, who would have thought, we'd be talking about satellites? It's amazing. Okay, the next item, Council, is the consideration of proceeding with notice for a development variance permit related to a proposal subdivision at 575 Pym Street North. I need a mover and a seconder for the two recommendations. Moved by Councillor Powell, seconded by Councillor Burton. Mr. Russell, would you give us the background, please?
Certainly. For Council consideration this evening is to proceed with notice for a variance permit at the property you've mentioned. The existing property is under application for subdivision. 3 lots are being proposed to be created from this property. All of the parcels are well in excess of the minimum size required. However, due to the shape of the originating parcel being in the shape of a triangle, it creates a situation where these lots narrow at the rear property line, thus needing a relaxation as outlined in the report. The applicant has provided some sample houses just to show that a conventional house is buildable on the property in spite of these relaxations that are being requested. And so at this point, basically the recommendation is to advance for public notice.
Questions for Mr. Russell? Councillor Burton.
Question about the walkway. It seems to empty out on 571 with really nowhere to go.
If I may worship through to Councillor Burton, so on the plan that you're looking at, it's actually reserved as a statutory right-of-way. It's going to be dependent upon some future development of the property to the south, and depending on that outcome, it may or may not come to fruition.
Councillor Salt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm just want to ensure that I'm actually reading this right. So so that generally the width is 818 by by 3.4, and what we're going to have is 9.11, which is half of that. Half of the original, the usual.
If I may, worship through to Councillor Salter, if the properties were rectangles, that would be the standard width would be 18 meters. There is a provision that allows the approving officer to approve it down to 16, but in this case, the lots at the front are well in excess. You know, we're talking 20 meters, 21 meters, 33 meters, but because they narrow at the back, this is at its very narrowest point. It's not the entire lot that's being relaxed to that, so they will be sort of trapezoid or triangular shaped lots, and that's the reason for the relaxation.
I'd just like to make a comment, and I'll go. I noticed on page 31 it says here, granting of the variance does not constitute subdivision approval, but will allow the subdivision application to proceed for further technical review by the approving officer. Councillor Burton.
Thank you for that clarification. The easement, well, not easement, the setbacks are less than 5 feet at the corner points on a couple of those properties. 1.65 meters and I can't remember the other one, but they're very, very tight. I guess my question is, what's the setback on some of the small lot subdivisions that we've approved?
If I may, worship through to Councillor Burton, so the 1.6 meter setback that you're seeing against the building footprints is actually the standard setback in our normal single-family residential RS1 zone. In the SLR1 zone, the small lot zone, they're allowed to be at 1 meter.
Questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay. The next item, I'm going to ask Councillor Burton to recluse thyself, I think. Is that appropriate? I guess it is. I was told it is. Okay. All right. This is the 2018 Community Park Food Services License Renewal, and I'm going to turn this over to Mrs. Kaler, but before I do, I need a mover and a seconder for the 4 recommendations. Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Oates. Mrs. Kaler, would you please give us the background on this issue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In spring of 2017, Council issued a license of occupation to the Parksville and District Chamber of Commerce to operate 2 mobile food trucks at the community park. The license included an option to renew for the 2018 season. The Chamber has since requested that Council consider renewing the license, but is also requesting permission to add a 3rd truck to the existing 2 pads. The 2017 license was amended to address signage, accessibility adjacent to the site, garbage pickup, and protection of infrastructure, specifically irrigation and seeded areas. And the rental rate has not been adjusted for inflation since the city entered into this agreement in 2014. And recommendations are per the staff report.
Questions from members of council. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. And so one of the questions I had at the last meeting was whether or not the Chamber of Commerce had approached the PDBA to discuss this with them and find out what their position was on it, and they haven't done that, and they never did that last time as well. I'm not sure how to do this. The people that were, the food trucks that were in the park were supposed to be associate members of the PDBA because they benefit from their advertising and everything, and that never happened either. And so I'm not really willing to support this because, one, the Chamber of Commerce hasn't spoken to the PDB, and that was a big sticking point the last time. And 2, just the request for a minimal of associate membership was not followed through on. And so, you know, I think it needs to be taken back to the Chamber of Commerce to do the work that needs to be done in relationship to the PDBA. And, you know, we're all in this community together. I think we should work together.
Any further questions or comments? I believe that in the report, where it's indicated that on bottom of page 44, top of page 45, that we had a letter or a response from the Executive Director of the PDBA, and that response requested $100 per year from the Chamber of Commerce, and it's my understanding. Yes, Mrs. Keeler.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was for the original license when we were considering this as a council in 2017. I've not been provided with any information for this renewal request.
I was under the impression that the Chamber of Commerce was prepared for 2018 to provide that money.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That has not been discussed with staff at this point. It was not part of the request that we received.
All right. Could we make that contingent on them providing the money, the Chamber providing the money to the PDBA? Would there need to be another recommendation in there? Does somebody want to make that recommendation?
The Chamber of Commerce being $100.
Yeah, to the PDBA. As per the Executive Director's request of last year.
Basic.
Mrs. Comas?
It would mean amending the recommendations to add an additional recommendation, and I believe that the intent was for each food truck to be an associate member of the, so council can certainly add a recommendation there that requires each food truck participant to be an associate member of the PDBA, if that is your wish.
That's not my understanding. My understanding is that the Chamber would pay for it. No. Oh, okay. Councillor Oates.
Thank you, Worship. I'm not sure how we can presume to know that that would be the position of the PDBA this year. We know that that was the position of the PDBA last year, and saying that we'll award this contract there, and we put in a provision there that they be an associate member. That sort of seems to mean that we're deciding for the PDBA whether or not they're okay with it. And I don't believe that we have the ability to do that, nor do I think that we should actually be pursuing policies of one group or the other. I think that those groups should be doing that on their own and not leaving it to council to say that you should do this or you should do that. I think an individual group has the right to interact with whichever group they wish to interact with in the community, and far be it from council to dictate whether or not you can do that. We could certainly say that we would be more supportive if we had the blessing of the PDBA like we did last year. But for us tonight to say that we're going to award this and that the condition of the award be the additional $100 for the third truck, I have not heard from the PDBA whether or not they support the third truck or not. So I'm not comfortable making a condition of an award that puts a requirement on one organization and infers the consent of another organization when we haven't even talked to them.
So we want to go back. I gather we want to go back and then let the PDBA and the Chamber sort this out, and then come back to council. Is that the feeling of the majority of council?
If that's what council wishes to do, Your Worship, you could always either table the report pending the consultation between the PDBA and the Chamber, or refer it back to staff for the same purpose, either way.
Sure. What do we do with the other motion? We withdraw it?
There is no other motion right now.
Okay, so let's vote. Let's vote on the motion that's on the floor.
Well, no, Your Worship. What my understanding is Councillor Powell wants to move a motion to table the report pending consultation between the Chamber of Commerce and the PDBA, and then I would assume that either the Chamber or the PDBA would provide that information back to staff, that the consultation has taken place and what the results of it are, and then at that time we would bring the report back to council.
Who's making that motion? You are? Okay, seconded by Councillor Beale. One of the comments I'd like to make is that I'm very leery about asking the food trucks to pay. I'm going to say this openly. I'm very leery because when I look at the street market in the summertime, which is humongous, and there's I don't know how many members of the street market, they don't all pay money to the PDBA, do they? As far as I know. Councillor Patterson.
That's a really good type analogy, definitely. Being someone who's very much aware of both aspects, the PDBA, food trucks, the chamber, and the street market. I am involved in all of those. Money from the street market is one of the major parts of the budget for the Chamber of Commerce, which I'm sure that Councillor Powell can attest to, as she is the liaison for both of those groups. But just on an aside, I think it is, and I'm just going to put it out there in my belief, that food truck vendors should most definitely be an associate member with the Parksville Downtown Business Association, as it is in that specific area, catchment area. And I fully support Councillor Powell's motion.
So with that kind of rationale, how would we deal with the street market?
That's something else to deal with. That doesn't really have anything to do with the city at this point.
Okay, let's call the vote. Oh, Councillor Oates?
So the motion is, as I understand it, to have the chamber consult with the PDBA? I don't think that we should be telling two other organizations what to do. If we're stuck on making this decision because we don't know what the PDBA's position is, we should be asking the PDBA what their position is on this proposal that's in front of us, not asking the proponent to go and talk to the PBA, come back and tell us what the PBA said, because then we'll be going to the PBA and saying, is that what they said? So why, in the way it was done last year was the request came to council, and in the spirit of the memorandum between the city and the PDBA, we asked the PDBA for comment on that, and that's what we should be doing now. Is not asking the chamber to go talk to the PDBA. We, as we're partners with, we have a memorandum of understanding with the PDBA, we should be saying to PDBA, one of the other stakeholders in the community is coming in and wishes to do something which may have an impact on you, please provide some comment. And once that comment comes back to council, then we can make a better decision on whether or not to grant this request. So I'll be voting against this motion.
I thought you said earlier that you didn't think council should get involved.
In what?
In this particular issue.
The motion is to table? Yeah, with direction that the two groups get together and talk to each other. Well, no, I don't support that. I support doing what we did last year. We asked the PDBA for comment, and I urge council to defeat this motion and then support a motion that I'll make to that effect immediately afterwards.
Any further comments from? No, we haven't voted on it yet.
So,
Mr. Mayor, I think you should. The comments like that are not helpful. Comments like that are not helpful. This is a serious issue, and I made a point, and there's I'm suggesting that we defeat the motion to table it, not friendly amendment. Defeat the motion to table it, and I'll call the question.
Okay, all those in favor? Oh, of calling the question. All those in favor of calling the question? Opposed? Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Of tabling.
Yeah.
And the direction is again? Okay, okay, we're going to call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? It's a tie, so it's defeated?
No, it's defeated.
It's defeated. Motion's defeated. New motion, Councillor Oates.
Yeah, I think that I think it's important that we have a request from one of our stakeholders or one of our community stakeholders to do something that has an impact on another stakeholder with which we have a memorandum of understanding, and asking them for input on this proposal, which would or could possibly have an impact on their organization. I think it's appropriate for the city to seek input for that organization before we make any decisions that could impact them.
Wait for Councillor Burton. Okay, we have the next report again, Mrs. Kaler. Parking permits for the community park. I need a mover and a seconder for the two recommendations. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Beal. Mrs. Kaler, would you please give us the background on parking permits for the community park?
Your Worship, just for a moment, the main motion hasn't been voted on. So Councillor Oates' motion didn't include tabling or referral, so we now have the main motion sitting there.
The main motion as written. Okay, so
yes, you did, but it didn't deal with the main motion. It asked us to get.
And I had a mover and a seconder for the main motion.
So no, it was not. The tabling
No, I didn't.
motion. The motion was tabled. The motion to table was defeated.
Yeah.
And then you put forward a motion for input, but the main motion was not dealt with. The 4 recommendations as per the council agenda.
So I have a mover and a seconder. Oh, I'm with Councillor.
Just let Councillor Burton.
Councillor Burton, please leave. Okay.
It didn't get dealt with.
So I'm now going to call the vote on the 4 recommendations. All those in favor?
No, we can't. So what we need is either a tabling or a referral of the main motions pending our undertaking the input from the PDPA.
Okay. All right. I have a mover. Do I have a seconder?
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Salter. Further discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Are we done? Are we done with item 5C?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that's 5C is done. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're back to. Wait till he's sitting down, and we'll ask him to leave again. All right. Once again, item 5D, parking permits for the community park. I need a mover and a seconder for the recommendations. Councillor Salter and Councillor Beal. Mrs. Kaler, please give us the background on parking permits for the community park.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So staff from the Bylaw and Parks Department have identified a need for a clear and transparent mechanism to allow for the issuance of special parking permission in the community park. In order to support this request, staff are proposing a policy, which is contained in the agenda, which will outline the criteria for applying and obtaining special permission and supporting ongoing bylaw enforcement throughout the park. And recommendations are per the agenda.
Any questions? Councillor Oates.
No, I thank you to staff for bringing this new policy forward. I know, speaking as the liaison to the Beach Fest group, that this is something that will certainly assist them in their project each summer. So, and I think that that parking is an issue over the entire city, and doing something to control it in the park is a good first step for us. So I fully support the recommendations.
Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Worship. Just for clarification, all we're doing is issuing parking permits. We're not specifying parking spots.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Councillor Powell. In some cases, there will be areas where it's still off limits to park. What's happened in the past is the park staff have identified a suitable location that avoids infrastructure such as our irrigation heads or sensitive areas that have been replanted. So the idea is that in conjunction with a special event permit, the applicant would work with park staff to suggest where they need to park for loading or unloading. And then in some cases, there will be sort of a memo that the park staff will provide to the bylaw officers so that they know vehicle A will be in this location. It will have a parking permit that will be visible, and it essentially assists them in not issuing tickets to somebody that has obtained approval.
Okay. On that basis, I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor? Yes, and congratulations to staff. That's a good report. Well needed by the sounds of everything that's been happening in our community park. Okay, we have now the appointment of election officers. Oh my goodness, is it that time already? I guess it is. We have 3 recommendations. I need movers and second. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Powell. Mrs. Kaler, fairly straightforward. Election's coming up. It's the law. We have to have an election, unfortunately. Nobody gets to rule like some leaders forever and ever and ever until death. No comments. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That is carried. Okay. Now, 2 readings and advance to public hearing. Zoning and Development Amendment Bylaw 2017, number 2000.111. I need a mover and a seconder for the 2 recommendations. Is that the one? That's not the one that... No, this is not the one. This isn't the one. This is another one. Yeah, zoning and development. Okay, I need a mover and a seconder for the 2 recommendations. Moved by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Oates. Any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. This is the one, right? This is the one that's on. Okay, so we're going to bypass that one. And I need need a mover and a seconder for the recommendation on the final adoption of the 5-year financial plan, Bylaw 2017-2021, number 1534.1. Moved by Councillor Beal, seconded by Councillor Patterson. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Quickly, we're going into new business. Other than this is the first meeting of the new year. Going to be a very busy year. The next one is I have on my item, the Parksville Volunteer Fire Department is beginning its annual recruitment drive, and they were at the chamber dinner last Thursday night. Made a good presentation in terms of what the fire department does and what they're looking for. So that's all for me for this evening. I have others, but I'll wait till the next meeting. You don't have anything, Councillor Oates?
Thank you, Worship. I wanted to do this at the last meeting of council last year, but given the timing and everything and the meeting dragged on, and I didn't do it, but I want to do it at this meeting, and I want to make a motion. I move that staff draft a policy on recognition of First Nation territories at meetings of council.
Seconded by Councillor Burden. Discussion.
If I may, Your Worship, it's been the practice of this council since the very first meeting of this council that you recognize the Coast Salish nations and the territories here at the beginning of the meeting. But I don't believe we have a policy that says we will do that. And in the spirit of reconciliation, I believe that reconciliation is not something that's confined to 1 year. It's something that has to be demonstrated year after year by your actions and that. I think that, absent some reason why we shouldn't do this, I believe that it would be a progressive step for the City of Parksville to have a policy that says that the Council will recognize the First Nation territories at the beginning of Council meetings.
Okay, any further comments or questions? I don't think there's any on that. That's fairly straightforward. All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you, Councillor Rhodes.
I move that council agendas be available no later than 7 days preceding the council meeting.
Ooh. Is that, okay, seconded by Councillor Salter. Is that possible, Mrs. Gomez? I'm told that's not possible.
Well, it's been seconded, so not ruled out of order, so we get to talk about it. Okay. So I understand that the distribution of agendas is something that's governed by policy. I believe through my research it's actually Council Policy 2.2. However, you won't find that by going on the website and looking at it. You'd have to go and look at the hard copy of it. And that policy was last amended, if the one that's in the book is accurate, was last amended in 1998. I'm not sure whether or not it can be done by motion, it can be done by policy, by resolution, by whatever means necessary, but I would like to have the council agendas much earlier than what I've been getting them. What I've been finding is that I get them on Friday morning, and assuming that my work schedule provides me the opportunity, I have Friday to digest the agenda and ask any questions of staff that I could. And if I can't do that on Friday, then I'm spending the weekend, every weekend before council, going over the agenda, and my only opportunity, providing my work schedule permits, then to ask questions is on that Monday. And I'd like to be able to do a better job in reviewing the agendas. So I would really appreciate having the agenda a week in advance of the meeting, so that any issues that I need to explore, I can explore. And so if it's not something that can be governed by the motion that I made, then I'm asking staff to provide direction on how I'm able to achieve what I'm desiring.
Okay, before any further discussion, I'm going to ask Mrs. Comas whether that's physically possible.
Well, first of all, Your Worship, that policy hasn't been repealed, but the community charter requires us to have a procedure bylaw which sets out those terms and conditions. So as a result, it is set out in the procedure bylaw, which was created in 2012, that establishes when council agendas will be available. If council wishes to change that schedule, they would have to do so by requesting an amendment to the bylaw, and then we would have to advertise, and it has to go through a public process in order to change that. In terms of the logistics of creating a council agenda 1 week before the meeting, would mean that we would likely face delays on the presentation of reports and things, because as it stands, to get the agenda out on a Friday, our deadline for submission of reports is 4 o'clock on the Wednesday beforehand. And it basically is, we could look at it if council wants us to look at a schedule change to the council meeting or to the council agenda distribution. I would ask council to give us direction to look into it and to report back to council on the feasibility of what we could do with respect to the schedule.
Councillor Oates and then Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Worship. Okay, then, so the motion that I made then really, he voted in favor, would really do nothing. So I'll withdraw the motion with the permission of the chair and the seconder, withdraw the motion, and I'll make the motion that the necessary revisions be made to the procedural bylaw to provide for council's acquisition of the agenda 7 days preceding the council meeting. As to the logistics of staff being able to provide it, I don't think that there's asking for the agenda 7 days prior to the meeting is onerous. We get our agendas with the RDN in that kind of lead time. The city of Parksville gets their agendas the day after their meeting for the next meeting, so it can be done. And I'd like to, it would make me more comfortable in my decision making that I've done everything that I did, so I wouldn't have to do things that we did earlier tonight, move reconsideration of motions because of not having the opportunity to do it. So I'm making the motion that it come back with the provision for 7 days advance.
does is that I don't get the RDN agenda until Friday, and the RDN board meetings are on Tuesday.
That's correct. And the RDN only meets once per month, Your Worship.
The city of Nanaimo gets theirs the day after their meeting. So, there's lots of reasons why it can't be done, and there's one reason why I want it to be done, and the reason why I want it to be done is I want to be able to perform the job to which I was elected. And I can do a better job doing that if I've had adequate time to prepare. And, it's a barrier to young people that if you want young people to run for these positions, you're asking them to give up their weekends with their kids and that so that they can digest agendas so they can do a good job. So it's a barrier, and I don't think it's onerous for us to have the agenda a week before. And if a week is onerous, 5 days before. But getting it on a Friday morning and then having the meeting on a Monday night, for somebody that works, it makes it very, very difficult to be able to access staff and answer questions. And I know in the past that has been a concern. Has council talked to staff? Well, perhaps one of the reasons council hasn't talked to staff is that they're busy out there making a living. And they haven't had the opportunity and the time that's provided to them to ask those questions of staff. So I want the agenda earlier, and I can't see any reason why we can't have it earlier.
So you're telling me for the last 15 years I've been getting the agenda 3 days ahead of time, spending my weekends reading the agenda and doing my research on Monday. Okay, Councillor Salter, you had a comment?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a comment, and I will just make it my case in point. Our last meeting, we received a USB with an appendix on it, and we received a 300-page agenda on a Friday. I couldn't go through it, and I said that at the meeting. I have not been able to go over this. So my due diligence for which I was elected did not occur. It couldn't occur. It was physically impossible for me to do that work. And so, nevertheless, we made a decision, a vote happened. None of us really saw it. None of us were able to go over that appendix. I know that. And yet we continued to make a decision. We realized it was the wrong decision. And so, yes, we had to reconsider this evening. And the reason is because we didn't have the time to go through it. That is that simple. And when we do have the time, then we get to ask the questions that we don't even have when we're getting that kind of material in front of us in such a short turnaround time. It's just due diligence, full stop. I don't think it's an argument. I just think it's really clear that we need that time. And I think it's whether we are retired or whether we're working. I think we all had that same problem with that agenda. And so giving us that extra time means we're prepared. We know what it is that we speak of. We've been able to do research if we require it, and we're good to go, which is what we should be doing in this position.
I just hope we don't run the risk of having smaller agendas. Councillor Powell.
Thank you, Worship. So I've been on council for 13 years. 12 of those years I worked full-time. I spent the weekend catching up on the agenda, asking questions Friday afternoon once I received it, and I never ran into any problems, given the last one with that subdivision bylaw was a huge amount of work to do. I never had any problem with doing my work on the weekend, and as far as I was concerned, I was prepared. I think you can ask anybody in the community. I was pretty much prepared for any council meeting, and so I'll support whatever this council wants, but I don't see a problem with getting it on Friday.
Okay, Councillor Beale, on the subject at hand? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I do look forward to, finding out what staff can do for us. I appreciated Councillor Oates' comment saying that, if it was even 5 days, it would really help. I mean, certainly I don't necessarily feel it has to be 7. That is the motion, I understand. There have been times when I would have dearly liked to receive the agenda a little bit earlier. So, even Wednesday afternoon, because it is problematic. And as Councillor Salter said, whether one's retired or working, it can be very difficult. Sometimes we do have some things planned for the weekend that we just can't avoid. So whatever could be done will be a help. And otherwise, we certainly have the option to table items that need more scrutiny. So I do feel that that it hasn't caused us great difficulty in our decision making but a little more time would be great.
When I have a council meeting on a Monday night and a board RDN board meeting on a Tuesday night and I get all my documents on Friday, yeah, my weekend is gone. Yeah. Councillor Burden.
I agree with Councillor Oates and Councillor Beale's comments. I would like, and Councillor Salter's comments, I would like more time, whether it's 5 days or 7 days or whatever it is. You know, it's been pointed out that the last agenda with that subdivision bylaw was significantly more material than we're used to. But I would like, anytime we can have more time to absorb the information that we're expected to make a decision on is a gift. So I would be supporting Councillor Oates' motion.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Your Worship. Since everyone else weighed in, I'll just add my 2 cents. We were elected to this position, and like Councillor Powell, I've got 9 years underneath my belt and worked probably 60 hours a week. And I was probably one of the only ones that got through that attachment on the weekend prior to the council meeting. And that's, so you find time. That's why you were elected.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to call the vote. I think we've had enough discussion. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. All right, we're going to move. Any further new business? Councillor Oates?
Yes, Your Worship. I move that the agenda order be rearranged so that new business appear earlier in the agenda. The reason why that is I found that initiatives of council come up under new business, and they come up late in the meetings, and there's been numerous times when there's been somebody has worked very hard to bring forward an initiative, and again, I don't believe that we're giving it the due diligence because it comes up so late in the agenda and people just want to leave, and we do it at the end. And I think we'd be better served if there are initiatives of council. We'd be better served dealing with those earlier in the agenda than at the last agenda item before adjournment. And that's it's either way. You know, if this is defeated, I'm fine with it too. I just find that. Sometimes we get late in the evening there, and we're not respecting the initiatives of council enough.
And everybody's gone home. Okay. I have a seconder, Councillor Patterson. Comment.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question towards staff on procedure and whether or not that can be done, because I actually fully support Councillor Oates' motion.
Gomez?
We're just reviewing the procedure bylaw, Your Worship, to see if the order of items in the council agenda are provided by bylaw. If they are, then we will come back to council with a bylaw amendment and follow the same process for the schedule.
Councillor Oates?
Alternatively, at every meeting, you ask for approval of the agenda, and at that time, we can amend the agenda. So if that's what it takes, that's what I'll be doing.
Okay. Any further comments or questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you. That's carried.
Your Worship, I don't appreciate comments like that.
Well, I believe they're made in jest, but I could be wrong.
You know, but when someone's, you know, I take this position very seriously, and when I'm finished speaking to hear a comment, thank God, you know what? You're doing a disservice to the position.
You want to apologize, Councillor Powell?
Actually, I would like to apologize. I didn't know I would hurt your feelings. I'm sorry.
Okay, Councillor Patterson. New business.
Thank you, Your Worship. Most of my meetings are this week. It tends to be the second and third week of the month that I attend a lot of my liaison positions. But I did want to mention your speech and your comments and everything at the Chamber of Commerce meeting were well received. You didn't get a whole lot of questions, so your speechwriter must have been very good. I jest a little bit, but again, it was well received. It was well thought out, and again, the volunteer firefighters are having a drive. It surprises me that the number of incidences continues to rise, and that they were over 500 last year. So that was really, really surprising to me. And again, you did mention that where our population sits and the staffing level of the RCMP and of the police department and of our fire department is going to have to be increased, and those are going to be some tough decisions that other councillors and people around this table are going to have to make.
Thank you. Councillor Beal.
Thank you. I have been in a number of meetings recently, although some of the new business items I will hold until the next meeting. The timing would be better. But I would like to mention that the Oceanside Community Arts Council has a really wonderful exhibit coming up, and there will be the opening reception for that this Saturday. So we're checking out at the MAC, that's the McMillan Arts Center. And the February 24th will be the walk for the coldest night of the year to raise funds for the Task Force on Homelessness, and I think that's a very important event to support. So I think there will be more information about that, as well as some fora that are coming up in February around some serious issues in our community as in other communities, such as opioid use and mental health issues and children, food security for children. But there will be information about all of those, so please watch for those and come out and learn more about any of these topics if you can possibly make them.
And I see there's a picture of the Premier finding one of the title treasures. You can't buy that kind of free publicity.
Your Worship, may I ask Councillor Beal a question? Will you be walking and raising funds for the coldest night of the year?
Absolutely, and my team is called Gimme Shelter, and if anyone who, best of all is if you can take part in a team yourself and raise funds, but if you're not able or for whatever reason not choosing to do that but would like to donate, tax receipts for anything $20 or more, and I'm happy to help with the cause. Thank you.
Councillor Salter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to say that we did, yourself and Councillor Oates, Councillor Burden, and Councillor Beal met with Minister Robinson and our MLA, Michelle Stilwell, for what I thought was a really great meeting. We did talk about homelessness and issues that not only we're having in Parksville, but same with issues that they're having in Maple Ridge and throughout BC. So I thought that was a good meeting, and I thought we accomplished a few things there. I also want to mention that I was just in a meeting with the Brant Wildlife Festival, which is coming soon in March. And I just wanted to put out there that this is the 100-year centennial. Because it was in 1918 that they began to focus on the migratory birds, and they actually created a Migratory Bird Treaty Act. So this is the centennial for that. So it's a big year for the Brant. So that's that.
I think there's some 100-year Brant out there. 100 years old.
I think there are some Elger Brant out there, yes. And we're going to be sort of moving out as well. We're going to be going out to some farming areas, as well as out to, of course, the wildlife sanctuary and so on. So it's going to be a really good festival this year.
Councillor Burton.
Thank you. As you recall, we had a presentation from Pacific Sport last, I believe, June, and they were promoting physical literacy for communities and looking to emulate a program that they'd put together in Cowichan and Campbell River in the Parksville region. Since that time, I've been advised that they've identified a funding source that can underwrite up to 2 years of support to develop a physical literacy for communities project. And they're now looking at Parksville as a recipient of that program. It seems that the grant needs to be applied for by a municipality. So I would like to request, make a motion that staff work with Pacific Sport on the grant application, and if successful, contract with Pacific Sport to provide the service.
When does the grant application need to be made?
I believe that timing is tight, and I think we're looking at probably a 2-week to 30-day window, but I can verify that.
I believe
they will do the work. They just need us.
That's the impression I'm under. They've got all this is a template. They've got a template for this sort of thing. It's not. They're not reinventing the wheel.
No.
Okay. That it? Thank you. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move into special business pursuant to Section 91A, C, E, and K of the Community Charter. Council proceed to a closed meeting to consider items relating to personal information about identifiable individuals, labor relations, land, and discussions respecting the proposed provision of municipal service. I'm going to move by Councillor Salter, seconded by Councillor Powell. All those in favor? Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute recess before we start.